Friends, today we're diving into some of the strangest and most mysterious events in history, so make sure you watch the video till the very end. Number 1. You've heard the story of the Titanic many times, but this is the story of a man who paid a heavy price, not for dying, but for surviving. His name was Masabumi Hosono, the only Japanese passenger aboard the Titanic. In 1912, as the ship was sinking and chaos filled the decks, Hosono managed to get a seat on a lifeboat. He survived. You'd think that would be a good ending. It wasn't. When Hosono returned to Japan, he wasn't welcomed as a survivor. He was branded a coward. Newspapers wrote things like, "He should have died for others." He brought shame to Japan. At the time, many believed a Japanese man's duty was to sacrifice his life for honor. Hosono even lost his job for a while, and he lived with public shame for years, simply because he chose to live. Today, historians agree that Hosono did nothing wrong. He did what anyone would do. He wanted to survive. Sometimes society praises the dead as heroes and treats the survivors like criminals. Number 2. This story comes from 1948 in the Dorovsky region of Soviet Russia, and it's genuinely chilling. World War II was over, but Russia's suffering wasn't. The war had left behind millions dead, villages destroyed, far fewer people hunting in rural areas. The result? Wolf populations exploded in the forests. The area was rural Kirov Oblast, about 600 miles east of Moscow. In 1948, an unusually aggressive pack of wolves began terrorizing nearby villages. These weren't normal wolves. They showed little fear of humans, entered villages even during daylight, and most terrifying of all, they targeted children. In several cases, wolves grabbed children from fields or village paths, sometimes right in front of witnesses. Panic spread. Children stopped going to school. Villagers were afraid to step outside. Eventually, the government stepped in, launching large-scale operations with soldiers, hunters, and organized wolf eradication campaigns. Only then did the attacks stop. This tragedy is a reminder that war doesn't end when the fighting stops. Its consequences can take lives years later. Number 3. After World War II, two powerful men stood on opposite sides of a growing split. Joseph Stalin, the Iron Ruler of the Soviet Union, and Josip Broz Tito, the President of Yugoslavia. At first, they were allies, but in 1948, Tito refused to take orders from Moscow, and everything changed. Stalin did not take this rebellion lightly. According to historians, he secretly sent multiple assassins to eliminate Tito. Some sources claim there were 20-plus assassination attempts. Every single one failed. Either the plots collapsed, or the assassins were caught. And here's where the story gets interesting. Frustrated by the constant attempts on his life, Tito reportedly sent Stalin a blunt and dangerous message. The letter said, "Stop sending people to kill me. We've already caught several of them. If you don't stop, I'll send one man to Moscow, and trust me, I won't need to send a second." The message was crystal clear. "You've failed again and again. If I try once, it will be enough." What happened next? Stalin never tried to assassinate Tito again. Tito stayed alive, stayed in power, and went down in history as the rare leader who openly defied Stalin and survived. Sometimes the strongest weapon isn't a gun. It's the right threat, delivered at the perfect moment. Number 4. The year was 1906 in the United States. A man named Joe Munch got into trouble for one simple reason: causing a disturbance while drunk. Normally, that kind of offense meant a fine or several days in jail. But this judge had a very different idea. The judge didn't see Joe as a criminal, just a slightly misguided man. So instead of a harsh punishment, he wanted a lesson Joe would remember. The sentence was announced: "You will spend 1 minute in jail." Yes, a full 60 seconds. Joe Munch was taken inside the jail. The guard watched the clock, and the moment the second hand completed one full circle, the door opened, and Joe was free. No humiliation, no long punishment, just a brief shock that said, "Don't do this again." Historians often call this the shortest recorded jail sentence in history. Sometimes you don't need a long punishment to correct behavior. One unforgettable minute is enough. Number 5. Let's go back to 1933, Germany. The Nazi Party was in power, and the grip of dictatorship was tightening across the country. That's when the Nazis launched a chilling campaign: book burnings. Any book that didn't match their ideology, books that questioned authority, promoted freedom, logic, or humanity, were thrown into the fire. Thousands of books were burned in streets and public squares. The Nazis claimed these books were dangerous to the nation, but the real danger wasn't the books. It was independent thinking. Among the books burned was the work of German poet Heinrich Heine. And here's the line that still sends chills, written nearly 100 years earlier. Where they burn books, they will ultimately burn people. It didn't sound like poetry anymore. It became a prophecy. Just a few years later, that same mindset led to concentration camps and the deaths of millions. Today in Germany, at sites where books were burned, Heine's words are engraved in the ground. So people never forget that burning books is often the first step toward burning people. Any power that fears books is really afraid of the truth. History keeps warning us. The question is, do we listen? Number 6. This story comes from the 13th century, and it's equal parts funny and serious. Around 1240, a young man named Thomas Aquinas was born into a powerful and wealthy Italian noble family. But Thomas had a plan his family absolutely hated. He decided to become a monk and join the Dominican order. His family was shocked. From a noble house to a monk. Unacceptable. So they did something unbelievable. Thomas was forcibly taken back home and kept under house arrest for almost a full year, all in hopes that he would give up his religious calling. And it gets even crazier. According to legend, the family even tried to distract him by sending a woman to tempt him, but Thomas didn't budge. Eventually, he escaped through a window and returned to the life he had chosen. That same man later became one of the greatest philosophers in history, one of the most influential theologians of the church, a thinker whose works are still studied worldwide. Number 7. This story will make you wonder, was this a court or a dark comedy? The year was 1386 in France. In a small village, a domesticated pig attacked a young child. The injuries were so severe that the child later died. Today, the outcome would be simple. The animal would be put down. But 14th century Europe played by very different rules. The pig was arrested, thrown into jail, and formally put on trial. Yes, like a human, there was an actual court hearing. Witnesses were called. Arguments were heard. In the end, the judge delivered the verdict, guilty of murder, and the punishment, just as human as the trial. The pig was, dressed in human clothes, brought out in public, and executed by hanging. It sounds absurd today, but at the time people truly believed that animals were morally and legally responsible for their actions. Number 8. The Maya civilization, around 250 to 900 AD, is famous for pyramids and calendars, but it was also known for some intense and unsettling religious rituals. Region: modern-day Guatemala, southern Mexico, and Honduras. First, an important clarification. Maya kings did not usually sacrifice themselves or their children. Instead, they practiced bloodletting rituals where they deliberately shed their own blood. Maya kings and queens would cut or pierce their tongues, ears, and sometimes even their genitals using sharp bones or thorns. Why? They believed royal blood was sacred, and that offering it was the most direct way to communicate with and please the gods. Now to the most famous king, Pakal the Great. Kinich Janab Pakal. His tomb was discovered at Palenque. On the lid of his sarcophagus is a detailed carving that made some people say, "Wait, is this an ancient astronaut sitting in a rocket?" Historians agree, it's not a rocket. It represents the Maya underworld and the cycle of life and death. Pakal is shown traveling between worlds, guided by sacred symbols. So, not aliens, just deep symbolism, belief, and art. The takeaway: Maya kings didn't see themselves as gods, but they were willing to offer their own blood to speak to them. So, what do you think about these incredible stories? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.